All right, 3 favorite things. Ready? Just kidding. Welcome, everyone, to Revival. This is Dave Butler.
I'm Stephan Taeger.
We're so happy that you're here. Listen, happy end of summer to everybody. And if it's maybe you're just getting back into the groove of podcasts and all that kind of stuff, sending the kids to school and whatever, or going back to school, or fall's good for my spirit, for football, and also it feels schedule-y.
Where does fall come in line? Rank the 4 seasons.
Oh, summer, number 1.
Okay.
Spring 2. Because summer's almost coming. Fall 3, close to the spring, and then winter, of course, is dead last.
Interesting.
In my spirit and soul. All right, y'all. If you're new to Revival Podcast, every week it's a good news brand podcast. We just talk about things that hopefully are good news about the gospel, because gospel means good news. And so instead of getting caught up in all the the nitty gritty or whatever, it's just hey, let's just remember big picture good news, stuff that's reviving for the soul, why it's so thrilling to live a life of faith. And so we take conference talks. Today is Elder Uchtdorf's talk, and we give our top 3 or one-liners from the talk. Sometimes Stephan goes over and gives 3 lines for one. He cheats, but we let him because he's so smart and teaches at BYU. And so we give him that. We give him that whatever privilege. We don't know what each other's 3 are, so that's kind of fun in a not that fun kind of way. It's a nerdy fun, y'all. So let's jump in. Let's jump into this one called Higher Joy. And Stephan, what's your number 3?
Okay. This is President Uchtdorf, A Higher Joy. And this is what he says.
I think I fell asleep during this one because when I read it, I was
that.
It has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with whatever time of day it was. Hopefully it wasn't no one looked that up. But because when I read it, I was like, whoa, I don't even remember this. This is great.
Yeah,
okay. All right, what's your number 3?
This is number 3. Life is not an endless sequence of emotional highs. Quote, for it must needs be that there is an opposition in all things. And if God himself weeps, as the scriptures affirm he does, then of course you and I will weep as well. Feeling sad is not a sign of failure. Now, this is a show about good news, right? This is the Good News Podcast.
Note, he gave 3 sentences, but go ahead.
Sorry about that. And but here's the good news. The good news is that we're not supposed to feel amazing all of the time, right? That God himself feels pain and sorrow.
Yeah, so you can let go of that expectation of yourself.
Right. That's the good news, is that a lot of suffering comes from thinking that I'm supposed to feel amazing all of the time.
Yeah.
And if actually we just sort of learn how to accept and experience all of the highs and lows of life that come with it, then we're a lot happier. There was this documentary, I think it was called The 10,000 Day Project or something like that. It was about these 2 Latter-day Saint boys, and it shows them as 12-year-olds, and they're growing up.
Okay, I kind of remember that. Yeah.
One of the best lines of that at the end of the documentary.
So what you're saying is I don't have to watch all 10,000 hours. Here's the highlight, everybody.
And one of the boys says this. I think it's on his mission towards the end. He says, I have finally learned how to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And that's deeply liberating.
Yeah.
It's just to say, do you know what? I'm going to remember things that cause shame and guilt and pain and embarrassment. And I can just feel those things and still live a life of joy alongside the pain.
Yeah.
The key is to be I'm gonna experience it all.
Yeah. And the thing is, you go to, you're in line at the grocery store or whatever, or you go to church. Hey, how are things? And people are always just oh, they're good. They're going great. Whatever. And so it feels like it's socially normal to just not admit and say, oh, I'm feeling this and this and this and this. So we can, I think, get tricked into thinking we're supposed to be happy all the time. We're supposed to be living the dream, baby.
Right.
Every single day. And I actually think that's good. Super helpful to know.
That is really, really good news. I think advertising also tells us that we are supposed to feel amazing all the time, and certain products will do that, right? And advertisers and marketers are brilliant at painting pictures that appeal to humans, and we kind of fall for the story that you're supposed to feel amazing all of the time.
Okay, that's so good. I almost picked that one, so I'm so happy that you picked it because you were going to be better at it.
Well,
I wrote this question for you in my margin. I don't even know when to ask it. Should I ask
it
just
right
ask now?
It. Go for it.
Okay, because I know you're going to be really smart about this. Okay, is happiness a byproduct of something else? In my mind, I think this is true, that if you're seeking for happiness itself, do you ever find it? Or are you meant to seek for something else and happiness kind of becomes a byproduct of whatever it is that, is that too big of a question?
No, and I, in my opinion, and I'd love to
should
hear
have
your
given
thoughts.
you some,
No.
Heads up on this, but
Well, in my opinion, I think it's clearly the latter, right? Like if you try to
what did I say last?
It's a byproduct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess that would, okay. I think it depends on how you define happiness.
Okay.
Because it's okay to seek for joy and goodness and truth, but that can't mean, like what we just talked about, feel awesome all of the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Our first job is to love, and necessarily love comes with pain. If you care about someone, it leaves open the possibility they may not choose to love you back. Right? And so that is risky, and God accepts that vulnerability. This is, Terrell Givens talks about this in The God Who Weeps, and Fiona Givens talk about this.
Like himself, he takes that upon himself.
Right.
Like he takes the risk.
I'm going to take the risk of caring about you, knowing that you may not care about me back. Right.
Oh my gosh. It's
right.
like, yeah.
It's so beautiful and so intensely
raw and real.
Right.
And like
goes to the cross, cares about us. Right. There's something to be said about, like, I don't know how to say this. I remember hearing in sacrament meeting, this woman, she said, whenever I try to not hit a pothole on the road, I always hit it. And so if you're always trying to feel good, connected to that in our minds is not trying to feel bad. And so if you're like watching, like, gotta feel good, you're also saying, don't feel bad, sort of, it's a part of that package. And you're just gonna be looking for opportunities and become obsessive about it. And it's just like, let that go.
Yeah.
Like just throw that out and live a life of love of God and love of others.
Okay. That's actually really awesome. I feel like we go forever on that, but it makes me, my number 3 is probably why I thought of it, even though it's a different spot in my book, is, can it be that in our search for joy, the best way to find it is to bring joy to others? And I thought that's actually like one of my life hacks. I try to teach my kids, or somebody asks, they're feeling sort of like lukewarm, about things. Like I remember reading from Elder Maxwell once where he just said this, something like this: the thou shalt not commandments are misery prevention, but they don't necessarily bring like a thrill and a happiness to life. He's like, those are found in the thou shalt commandments. Thou shalt love thy neighbor in particular, and the Lord thy God with all thy heart. And it just made me think, this is always my life hack. If I feel like so wrapped up in myself, if I feel wrapped up in potholes or whatever, it's like, oh, maybe the best way, or he said, can it be? And I would say, yes, it can, is to bring joys to others. And I connect that with that second line. You had 3, so I'm going to take 2, that they can be simple things. It doesn't take very much. Sometimes I think maybe I wait for some grand opportunity to do good or improve somebody's life. And it might seem cliche to even give examples of what the simple things are, but I just think it, just do it,
right.
Whatever easy, simple thought idea comes, like, don't underestimate the impact of a really simple act of kindness, act of compassion. They become lifelong tokens for people that they're seen and remembered by God, even.
Love that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's my number 3.
Just really fast. Our culture right now really emphasizes becoming authentic and true to ourselves, which is great and good. But I would just say we are built to love. And so our most authentic selves will always be outward thinking. And we'll never quite feel right until we live a life of relationship and love. That's what we're designed to be like.
Yeah, which makes me think, come back to that question that I was asking, is happiness a byproduct? It's like, what if I'm not seeking for happiness, but rather if the focus of my day was seeking for opportunities to demonstrate and show love, opportunities to increase love in the world, in the grander world, but in my world in particular, that it just seems like happiness will become a byproduct of that. But just like shift, like, what is my purpose of my day is not to find happiness, but rather to love well. And P.S., you're going to end up at the end of the day with happiness because of whatever purpose that was.
Yeah, I just think that's such a more thrilling, exciting, meaningful way to live than I got to get my to-do list done and I got to find a place to relax.
Yeah.
And
it feels sometimes like, I know that like the scriptures, like, and this whole talk is like encourages, you're meant to have joy, you're meant to find happiness. But sometimes I feel a little bit selfish, like saying like, like my whole purpose is to find happiness. I feel a little bit too like,
right.
I don't know. I feel a little funny saying
Yeah.
that.
Actually, my number 2 is like connected with that.
Okay.
And so, but what were you going to say?
No.
something?
I was
Okay.
just trying to set you up. Like beach volleyball, we would have been so much better than the beach volleyball teams from the USA. Like, what were you?
Everyone, Revival World, Dave is emotionally deeply connected to the Olympics. It's
by
not
this
good
point,
for him.
You,
It's
you
not
hear
good
this,
for
they're
him.
over, and like I can move on with my life. But sometimes I would look at the TV and tell them, "I'm proud of you, but did you forget you were in the Olympics?" Just kidding. God bless all of y'all. Can't even run a mile. But okay, what's your number 2?
Okay, number 2. President Uchtdorf says, our beloved Father in heaven wants all his children to have as much happiness as possible. So he has filled this world with beautiful, wholesome pleasures and delights, both to please the eye and gladden the heart. For me, flying brought great happiness. Others find it in music and art and hobbies or in nature. So he's talking about this in the context of something else, but that's still obviously a true principle. And sometimes I think because of the conversation we just had, like, oh yeah, we're supposed to be beings of love of God and love of others. That means that we can't love anything else. And for us, and Augustine was actually really good on this, it's actually just about ordering your loves. What do you care about most? And I think we, as a people, I don't know where it comes from, right? If it's like American Puritan stuff being left over or whatever, but we sort of feel guilty if we're like, oh, I really like the theater, right? Or watching a football game or whatever it is.
I love that your first one was the theater. Like nobody in the world.
I go to the Shakespeare Festival every year, Dave.
Guilt for loving the theater. That's so good. That's so good.
I'm sorry.
Okay, but you were on such a good. I'm so sorry. I derailed such an awesome thought. Please continue because I think you're about to liberate people.
If you happen to love Baroque music, like
if you don't feel bad about loving the symphony, you guys. Come on, give us something more bass, that like with the symphony, you're like, that's so connected to heaven and angels and stuff that you're like, of course it's fine to love that. And art, come on. I'm so glad football was your second one. Okay, let's just.
And so
buying shoes, obsessive. Just kidding.
Okay, and so what I'm trying to say is I think it's 100% okay, not just okay, but God wants us to have joy. But first and foremost, we love him, we love others. We live a life of sacrifice, right, and goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way we can tell if we're ordering our things right is, are we willing to give them up for God?
Mm-hmm.
We can pay lip service, be like, yeah, of course I love God, and never participate, right, in holy habits or service to others or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, but it's okay to love the theater, Baroque music, whatever it is. Right. Yeah. So that's my number 2.
I actually think about that when I go to the temple. So if you've never been to an endowment session in a Latter-day Saint temple, it begins with a presentation of the creation of the earth. And I just think before mankind ever shows up on the scene on day 6, there are these days of creation and gift giving. And I just think there's something about that we are introduced to God as a gift giver. And some as a being who creates beautiful things to enjoy for the sight, for the smell, whatever, those words that he says. Yeah, I just think that's really, I like that reminder every time I go about, who he is. And it makes me feel like you can get all of the above. Like, what am I allowed to love?
Right.
Like, all the things.
Yeah.
And something even more thrilling, which is, I think, the kind of the purpose of the talk. Like,
right.
All of us on earth, whether you have a relationship with God or not, can enjoy his gifts that he's given. And then some people get to enjoy the giver of the gift in addition to the gifts themselves.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You said that way better than I did. I think that's...
Oh, no.
Creation itself is good. That's how the Bible starts, right? The Book of Mormon, the prophets there, they constantly teach creation, fall, atonement. The story starts with this beautiful world, right?
Yeah.
Embodiment, food, beautiful sights, all of these things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then even people like following after that pattern and creating things.
Yeah.
I always get so proud of people when they start businesses and open stores. I'm like, Elder Uchtdorf's talked about that before. I think one of his first conference talks ever about just like, you're in the image of a creator. It's kind of cool. All right, my number 2 is he's telling the story of the Wright brothers. And he says this line, Milton, I think is the dad, of the Wright brothers, got so caught up in the exhilaration of flight that all fear left him. And I just thought, I want that to be the description of my faith. That I got so caught up in the exhilaration of the good news that all of my fear left me. That the good news of the gospel is bigger and grander and more majestic than any of our doubts or fears can compete against. Like sometimes you can really get caught up in the details and the arguments and the nuances of things. And I'm just like, wait. But the Father sending the Son to the cross is so big in its love and its majesty that it kind of swallows up everything else. Like I love the idea and the thought of being caught up in the grand thrill of the gospel of God. And that's what that line reminded me of. When I read it.
You're preaching today, Dave. That's good.
That's a good, I loved it. I was like, what? You know what I'm talking about? I was like, don't get so caught up. What are you getting caught up in is what I want to ask people.
Right.
Hold on, compare it. Compare what you're getting caught up in to like, are you know what I'm saying? It's like this whole idea of just like my seatbelt fits funny on a plane that's flying to the sky. And I was just like, okay, I do want to acknowledge that your seatbelt is probably digging into you or whatever, but you're flying. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna get to Rome in 6 hours. Like that's pretty cool. Like don't get so
right. Yeah.
I don't want to disregard people's things that they get caught up in, but maybe I compare them to get caught up in the thrill.
Right. See the big picture. Think celestial. See the goodness. Right. Yeah. Okay. That was awesome.
Are we on a number 1?
Number
already?
1. Yeah.
Number 1, baby.
Okay. President Uchtdorf, or Elder Uchtdorf, by inviting everyone and sharing the Savior's good news of great joy, we do not discount any of these sources of joy.
Mm-hmm.
We're simply saying that God has something more to give, a higher and more profound joy, a joy that transcends anything this world offers. It is a joy that endures heartbreak, penetrates sorrow, and diminishes loneliness. Yeah, the world is full of goodness and all the wonderful creation. I think it's so important as disciples of Jesus that we get really clear about what God offers that we can't get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? First of all, of course, the joy of knowing I'm accepted and forgiven, declared guiltless, justified in the sight of God because of the grace of Jesus, right? First and foremost, right? Forgiven and put in this state of, pardoned for our sins, right?
And I would even say, maybe you're going here, so sorry if you were, but if I have that inner, grace-filled confidence, then I actually can walk into the theater and enjoy it even more.
Right.
Is what I would say.
No question.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I'm walking into these things that you can enjoy. You can have a guilt-laden, lonely, broken heart and go into a good movie and be like, that was a great movie. But it was like, but what if you walked into that movie with a confidence that only comes from the cross? It changes the whole experience.
Man, you're preaching today, Dave. This is good stuff.
Print this up.
No, and I think of in our tradition we believe in temples and temple sealing. I just think of the joy that comes from knowing Kirsten and I are sealed, that our children are sealed to us.
Yeah.
That transcends, we have a good marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good family. The gospel offers the most profound, transcendent joys. And so make that the foundation, make that everything we think about and work towards. And then, of course, all the other stuff will fall into place.
You get all the rom-com stuff in addition, right? But it comes in this with this base that's so rad.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually drew a line between your quote and my number 1, which we're connected, bro. But this line, I just like this 2-word line. It's better. He's talking about, and then quotes Jesus where he says, I'm come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. Just what he gives. The peace he gives is not like what the world gives. It's interesting because the world can give some measure of peace, but it's just but this one's better. And back to what he said in your line. That's all we're saying. What we're saying is like, there could be something more, but that word abundantly is like, it's like drawing my spirit, these days. Just like, this is what I'm offering you, a richness, an HD version, or whatever the new one is, of this experience in this world that can be filled with that confidence and that comfort, and also this anticipation, like to always live with this thrill of hope, in you, experiencing it in some measure, but expecting it in greater. It's the best product on this earth, right? Right now. Maybe we need to do a better job marketing it, because if the marketers can get me, to buy a new razor or whatever in greens to drink in the morning, it's like, someone get the best minds behind like the best product.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Just briefly, I want to say I'm so grateful for apostles like Elder Uchtdorf, who are steady, consistent voice, who point us to real joy.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many voices out there in our world now, and to have someone faithful, steady, who's close to God, and say, let me point you to our Father and His Son Jesus Christ, and say that's actually it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually where you're going to find it.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that.
Amen. That's good news. That's reviving, baby. Okay, we'll see y'all next week.